phrase, the gap, what picture does that create in your mind? Clothing. Jeans, yes. Such a popular store. The gap. Maybe it draws the canyon, the Grand Canyon. And is this too loud? No? Okay. Maybe the gap pictures David Letterman's gap in his front teeth. Or as I get older, the gap in my memory seems to be growing bigger and bigger. We were just talking about that earlier. If I don't write it down, it's gone. The gap can represent a lot, and it's more than a thing, and it's not really a place. It's this emotional space we find ourselves in by life's events. It's this gap that we find ourselves in that feels so vast sometimes, so deep and so wide that we're never going to be able to bridge it. Have you ever felt like that? That emotional space that life can create so much drama, pain, fear, loss. You name it, it's in it. The gap is this place that we hope for, but we're not finding it in our life. We hope that we'll be these kind of parents, but we're not. We hope that we'd have this kind of marriage, but we don't have it. The gap is that vast space of emptiness, aloneness, that place of utter darkness and fear, the middle of nowhere. And the reason I'm emphasizing the gap is because the gaps between what we desire versus the reality we are experiencing can have devastating effects upon us, seemingly unmanageable in our lives. And it can rob us. It robs us of our hope. Our verse today, Romans 15:13, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with joy by the power of the Holy Spirit. As we sang this morning, sounds so easy, doesn't it? You know, I love singing those songs, but I don't know about you. Do you ever have moments where you're like, oh, not really in that space this morning, or, oh, sure didn't talk to my kids like I believe that or live that, right? Have you ever had those moments where you're like, I'm so glad nobody gets to watch this reality TV show of me and watch me sing this song because it does not match for where I'm at the moment. I don't know about you, but sometimes that can create such guilt within me that I wish so bad I could sing it, and there are moments I live it and I'm in it and it feels wonderful, and then there are moments I'm not. And I'm trying, that's a part of that gap, right? When what I believe is not matching up with the way I'm living my life. It's an honor to be here today, and also a very humbling experience, because so often as we talk and as I share, it's coming from a place of where I'm at in my own life and the way I'm living, and it always makes me laugh, because God really does have a sense of humor. You see, hope is the feeling of what one wishes will be true. Right? We all have these hopes of what our life is going to be like, what it's going to look like, and sometimes it doesn't always match up. Funny how, remember when you were a kid and what you hoped for? You hoped to get picked for the team, you hoped to pass the test, you hoped to get asked to the dance, you hope maybe you could have a boyfriend on Valentine's Day, Christmas, your birthday, so you get an extra gift, right? Forgive me, when I was growing up, I just really hoped I'd grow boobs. Do you remember those days? Where the things you hope for seem so silly and so minor, and now you look back and you laugh at yourself on how important they seem to be, and in reality they aren't that important. As an adult, we can hope for things that are vastly different, right? Now I hope for another vacation. I hope to be able to retire someday. I hope that my kids are going to turn out to be well-functioning adults that contribute to society, right? I hope that I can age gracefully with very few crinkles. I hope I love my dear grandmother, but I really hope my boobs don't grow longer than my belly button. I love my grandma, but her, bless her soul, that didn't happen for her. What do you hope for? What are you hoping for right now in your life? And what happens when what you hope for doesn't turn out like you hoped? You see, isn't that really the challenge? When life doesn't turn out like I hope, then what? And I admit, there have been times I've been able to handle it graciously, and there have been other times I didn't at all. Because it's not always easy. When I have things that I really hope for, and they don't turn out like I want, I go through this cycle, and I'm wondering if you can relate. I usually start off with anger. And then I move to sadness, maybe frustration, and then taking a nap sounds really good. Right? Can I just pull the covers up over my head and go back to sleep and pretend this never happened? Or maybe some chocolate or a bag of Doritos or something really unhealthy sounds really good. I wish I could say I just jumped to this place of peace and grace and understanding and joy, because I know that God's got it all in His hands. But it doesn't usually happen right away. I wish I could have that place of acceptance, and as I'm getting older, I'm getting better. But I don't always find that to be the case. Do you have anyone in your life that reads you really well? I mean, who can just look at you and know exactly what you're thinking and feeling? I have one of those in my life, and he is my son. My blessed little son back here that almost killed me during pregnancy and childbirth, and yes, he owes me for the rest of his life, so I get to tell stories on him, right? Otherwise, why did I get these stretch marks? It has to be worth something besides this precious little soul in my life. And he can read me better than anybody else in my entire life, more than my husband. When we just moved here 9 months ago from Idaho, and in our house there, I could walk in from the garage, through this little laundry room, through a hallway, and right into the kitchen. And the kitchen opened up onto our living room. And my son would usually be in the living room watching some show after TV or doing his homework, and he could know whether I had a good day or a bad day by the way I walked into the house, shut the door, set my purse and my computer bag down, and walked into the kitchen. It was amazing. He was in the living room, so he couldn't see my face. He couldn't see any, we didn't even exchange words. And I could walk in, and he'll be like, "Mom, did you have a good day? Mom, are you okay?" And I would always be in the kitchen going, "How can you know? Like, dang it, now what do I say?" And so I believe in being honest with my kids, and you can say, "You know, I did have a hard day," or "Yeah, I had a great day," or whatever. I'd answer the question. This one day, have you ever had this where you come home, and my kids, they know what expectations I have, right? Your kids know, your husband knows. When I come home, and especially if I've asked that you would do the dishes, or you would pick up, or you'd pick up your shoes, or whatever it might be, those small little details. And one day I came home, and I walked into the kitchen, and the first thing I saw was the things I had asked to have done were not done. And I was tired, and I wanted to go to bed, and I was a little grumpy. And Cody says to me, "Mom, are you okay?" And I'm breathing, because you know that foot starts tapping, and your hands start going to your head, like thinking, "No, I'm fine." And he's like, "Mom, you look angry." And I was like, "What do you expect? Are you really surprised I'm angry? I asked this and this and this. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Come on. Are you surprised I'm angry? You've known me for how many years? You should know that I'd be frustrated, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did." And of course, in those moments, you feel like a horrible mother, right? And you want to just go climb in bed again. And in those moments, I have found myself going, don't you ever wish that that's what you want to say to God? When life doesn't turn out like we hoped, I want to go, "Are you surprised? Are you really surprised, God, that I'm mad? I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated. You know me, you created me. I've been talking to you about this. I've been praying to you about all these things that I've been dreaming and wanting and hoping for, and they're not turning out. Where are you? Are you surprised?" Do you guys ever talk to God like that? I totally do. I try not to do it in public so that people don't think I'm talking to my third person. Try, maybe in the car just a little bit. And what I love about God, and the thing that I have learned to trust more and more in my life, is that God sits there and smiles and nods his head and goes, "Oh, I see you. I know you." And what I love about God is that he does not judge us. He does not condemn us because of our response. He's not mad because we're frustrated and angry and disappointed, right? He's not. He gets it. And we look at Jesus' example, and he gave us a great example because he got frustrated at times too. He got angry in the temple. He cried and cried to the point that he wept tears of blood in the garden. Jesus had the same reactions as we did at times. Maybe not as often as I do, but there are moments. You look at Jesus' great examples that he gave us of love and grace, not judgment and anger, and how he responded to Peter when he denied him 3 times, the people that crucified him, the 2 people that were on the cross behind him, the Samaritan woman, the woman caught in adultery. You look at all these examples, and what did he offer? Love and grace. Not judgment, not condemnation. And you know why I think part of that is? He doesn't need to. Because we do a great job all on our own, don't we, women? We beat ourselves up like nobody else. You see, it's not our response that gets us in trouble. It's not. Because the key in our response is that we just can't stay stuck there. And this is the one thing I need to set clear and loud right now. Please do not walk away from this time today and think that I am saying it's not okay to be angry, it's not okay to be frustrated, it's not okay to have a bad reaction. Oh no, because I wouldn't be allowed to do it either. And it's okay to be angry. It's a real God-given emotion that we have, right? So don't wipe that out. We get to be angry, we get to be frustrated. Here's the key. We don't get to stay stuck there. You don't stay there. You feel it, you understand it, you express it, and you move forward in it. That's where we get in trouble. That's where the gap is created, is because we've stayed in this place of anger and frustration. Because I'll tell you what, when we stay there, it turns into resentment and bitterness. And then it becomes so like stone within us. So comfortable within us, we really don't even know it's there anymore. You see, the gap that we find ourselves in is inevitable. It's the length of stay that's the optional part for us. And so how long do you want to stay in the gap? Again, don't beat yourself up that you're in the gap. It's real, it exists, it happens. Okay, now what? So what are we going to do about it? In this time this morning, I really want to focus on what robs us of our hope. What robs us, what creates the gap for us, and how we get stuck there. And this afternoon, we're going to go to a place of restoring our hope. How do we find that place again and move forward and out of that gap? So what kind of life do you live? A life that is amazing and wonderful, full of twists and turns. One that allows you to play an integral part in what God is doing in the world because you know you have a role to be in a greater story of God. Do you believe that? Do you live it? I do. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were created to be a part of an amazing story that God has designed for each one of us. But if you find for yourself, you're like, I don't feel all that special. I don't feel all that good. It's okay. You're not alone. I think there's always going to be times that we're in that space. You're in the gap. The gap is that feeling that we have, what we want is in doubt. Will it ever happen for me? Will I ever have what I dream of? And part of the challenge, ladies, is recognizing that that is the space that we are in. You see, the challenge living your life in the gap is that it doesn't often tell the story we dream of other people seeing in us. So what's the story of your life telling? I don't know about you guys, but I have my 2 kids, and they are some of my greatest motivators. Because when I look at my life and what kind of story I'm telling, the first people I look to are them. What am I teaching them by the way I live my life? What am I doing? What am I modeling? What do I want for them? Because I don't know about you guys, but it's harder to try and overcome some things, right? When our parents haven't helped teach us it. I don't do this perfect. I never will. But the one thing I want my kids to walk away with is, Mom sure tried. Mom kept after it. Mom kept working. Mom kept moving forward. She never gave up. Because that's just not the way we do it. Right? That's what I want them to see. Because life, it has its up and downs. It has its struggles. So what kind of story is your life telling? And when I ask these questions today, ladies, I want it to be a just thought-provoking, no guilt, no shame, no pointing the finger, okay? I just want to get you thinking, to challenge you a little bit, to look at your life. Is your story one of faith, hope, and love? Is your story more of a drama or a soap opera? Or is it a cynical, sarcastic satire? If we're honest, probably all of us have had moments of all of those, right? We've lived a while, lots of things have happened. It's not always easy, is it? There's no blueprint that comes with life, and this is how to be the most successful and make it all work, right? It doesn't work that way. But here's the key. What are you going to do about your life? You really do have a choice. You see, if the gap is inevitable, then really what it does come back down to is, what am I going to choose for me? And how I'm going to live it? And how I'm going to move through it? That's what it comes down to. This isn't about we've lived a good life because we've had no gaps, or we've had no struggles, we've had no difficulties or moments that we could have done it better. We're just setting ourselves up for failure if that's the way we're going to live our life. It doesn't work. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on the parts of your story that you don't like? Have you ever noticed, the little conversation that goes on in our head a lot? Have you ever noticed it's usually the things that you don't like? The things that you're still frustrated about, or maybe even fuming about, or disappointed in? Why is that? Why is it so easy for us, and forgive me, can I say especially as women, that we can get stuck rehearsing the things that are bad, wrong, or the things we don't like? And it truly, I've done therapy for years. There is no magic pill. There is nothing that takes this away except for us deciding, I want more out of my life. And it comes down to me and what I'm going to choose in this moment, today, right now. I wish there was a perfect formula. I wish there was a magical wand I could just wave. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? To watch people grow and to be healed and to move forward in their life. It would be fantastic. I would love it. I haven't found it. I don't think it exists. Because then we would never need God. We would never need His Word. We would never need what Jesus did on the cross for us, right? I need that magical wand. And that's it. You see, reliving a bad story doesn't help us. So let me bottom line it for you. Do you know the best way to lose hope? The fastest way, the quickest way, is to lose trust. When we stop trusting, that is when we lose our hope. That is when we go to this other side. Because if we can't trust this God who loves us, who died on the cross for us, who gave us these promises, what do we have to trust? If we don't have that, we don't believe in that, then where is our hope? Where does it go? In me? In my husband? In our careers? In the United States? It doesn't work, does it? Where else can we draw our hope but from God? If we want it to be lasting and something that makes a difference. Do you ever feel like you doubt God but need Him? When we cry out to God and to take away our pain and the stuff we don't like of life, and yet not really want to lean on Him or really learn the lesson He's trying to teach us? Have you ever felt like that? It's like this love-hate. I love you, I hate you. Come here, get away. Right? It's very confusing. We pray to receive, and when God doesn't come through, we get mad. We lose trust, and ultimately we lose hope. So what story are you telling with your life? What's the dominant theme for you? Is it joy? Is it heartache? Is it pain? What is it for you? What is the resounding within you? What do you find yourself thinking about the most as it relates to your own story? Is it what's going on right now? Or is it the past? Is it the future? You see how easy it is to lose perspective of the present moment right here, right now? Perhaps here's a better question. How would you feel if someone started talking to you the way you talk to yourself? Would you like it? Would you put up with it? What if someone started talking about you the way you talk about you? Would it be a very pretty picture? My guess is, if you're like many of us, no, it's not. You see, people tend to get stuck thinking they are a certain type of person. Often it's because of the messages we were told, right? You'll never amount to anything. You'll never be good enough. You're never going to be pretty. No one's going to want to marry you. Whatever the story was from your family or friends. But you get to choose who you want to be. You get to choose what you're going to listen to. And when you succumb to that we are just or always or that's the way it is, we have bought into a lie. And the reason that we have bought the lie is because the trust has been shattered within our lives. Can you see that? If you're going to think little of yourself, then you're not listening to God anymore. So where's the breakdown? Where's the breakdown in trust that happened? The trust that gets shattered is that, well, we don't trust that things could be better. Trust that someone cares. Trust that God is big enough. Trust that I can overcome this. Trust that it will be okay. Trust that I have what it takes. Trust that our hope is in the Lord. Trust that He meant what He said. He meant His promises for us. Do you guys trust all of that? Honestly, at moments I do. And at moments I don't. It's about recognizing in that moment, that's the space I've slid to. That's the place I am in. So what am I going to do about it? You see, there's no conflict, pain, or loss a person can endure that will not produce a blessing. Do you believe that? Does it always feel like it? And please hear me. I am not asking you in the moment to feel like it's a blessing when horrible things happen in our life. No way. My husband just did the funeral for that boy that's been in the news, that 12-year-old boy that was stabbed by his stepbrother. I'm not expecting that mother to think that's a blessing right now. It's a tragedy. It's a heartbreak. It's a grief beyond words. But at some place down the road, my prayer is that she can see blessings that have come out of it as a result of it. Do you see the difference? It's not easy. Not always easy to see life circumstances as a blessing. The idea that Jesus will make everything better is a lie. He can make things better, but He won't make things perfect. If He took care of everything, if He made everything just the way we wanted it, would we love Him because of who He is? Or would we love Him because of what He does for us? Isn't that the truth? God cannot make everything perfect in our life. That's not what this is about. If He made everything perfect, it's not about a relationship anymore. It's not about trusting Him. Because He's going to make everything perfect, right? And when that doesn't happen, then what? That's where we get to find out where our faith really lies. What we really believe. What we really trust. Stop expecting God to fix everything in order for you to be happy, to trust again, and to get out of the gap. As I say that, please hear me. I say it humbly, because it's not easy, right? We get so frustrated with our husbands We get so frustrated with our kids, with our finances, with our jobs, with our family relationships, right? And if you could just fix my husband so that he could stop being so annoying, right? Could you just fix my kids so they stop pushing my buttons? Okay, wait, I might save that one for my mom. Oh, please, God, please. Why do they have to keep pushing my buttons? Because she made them, that's why, right? I'm a mom, so I can say that now, right? I realize I'm creating buttons in my kids that someday I'm sure I will push. We are in a constant state of trying to protect ourselves. Can you see that in your life, how we do that? We're constantly worrying about that next thing. And we are constantly protecting ourselves because we don't trust. If things don't turn out like we wanted, what we needed, what we expected, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I won't be happy. But if I protect myself in a perfect way, everything will be okay. But the challenge is, the price tag that comes with that is, we don't have to grow then, right? If everything is perfect in our life, I don't have to grow. I am safe, I am comfortable, and all is good. But it doesn't work like that, does it? I have to admit, there's moments still I wish, like a magical house cleaner that would come around and just clean your house. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Okay, God, could you help my husband figure out how to do that without me having to ask, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? I would love it. So what am I going to do when it doesn't happen just the way I thought, wanted, dreamed, or pictured it? We don't like people putting conditions on us, but we put conditions on God all the time. Have you ever noticed that? I don't like this, so I'm going to withdraw. I don't like this, so I'm going to stop tithing, or I'm going to stop going to church. I will trust you with this part of my life, but not that part of my life. My joy depends on the outcomes in my life, not on you, God. Do you see how easy it is to put conditions on a relationship with God? It's hard, because it's easy to put conditions on a relationship with our kids, with our spouse, with our, right? It's the American way. I can have it all. But it doesn't work in relationships. I have worked with so many clients, and I gotta confess to you, I find this more with Christians than I do any other group. We have such high expectations because we do have this hope. We do have this joy. We do have this peace, and we've experienced it at times in our life. But then something happens, and it doesn't work out that way. And then we're mad. And so often, what we believe is not the way we live our life. And again, I don't want us to beat ourselves up that we did it. I want us to be aware enough, be present enough that we can go, oh my goodness, I just did it. Oh man, can I ask you this? How many times do you guys go to church on a Sunday because that's what we do? Not looking forward to the time of worshiping a God that we love. Not looking forward to the time of maybe we can learn something and deepen our faith. Usually it's, okay, I got to get the kids to the nursery, and I'm teaching class, and oh, I can't wait to see Susie and how she's doing, and we sit through the service because that's what we do, and we sing, and then we walk out like, okay, what am I going to do for lunch, and I have this errand to go run, right? How many times does church become a to-do item on my list? It becomes something on my calendar because it's a social event, not something to transform our lives and come and embrace a Heavenly Father that loves us. Please don't get me wrong, I've done it. There are times it's like, I'm just lucky I'm here and I have a little bit of makeup on. Right? That's just a little example of that times of Christians. Our faith becomes so comfortable, so second nature that we forget what it's about. It becomes routine and something that we just go through. I was working with a client many years ago, and she came to me, oh my goodness, she was angry. And I don't blame her one bit. Her husband had left her for a gal who was 20 years old. She had worked so hard to put him through school, and here he had this great thriving career, great comfortable lifestyle, great income. And he got a really good lawyer and took her for everything. Then left her with nothing and 2 kids. So he could go on and start this new life. I get it. And I sat there with her in her anger and her hurt and fear that she had about the future. And she was a Christian. That I was so glad to be able to rekindle that heart in her, to be able to say, okay, you're right, this has been unfair. You're right, you didn't deserve this. You're right, God is upset with you. Now what? Now what? Is this where you want us to start? And it was so wonderful to get to watch her. She journeyed through this process of learning to trust God again. She went to church faithfully every Sunday. She believed in the Lord as long as it went the way she wanted and she could maintain this comfortable lifestyle. Don't get me wrong, God didn't do that to her. Her husband did, making very bad choices. But she was left with the consequences of it. And that's the challenge. And today I have to say, she still texts me and emails and lets me know that she's doing great. That for her, this experience brought her to a new understanding of the God who loves her and a new way to relate to Him based on a relationship, not on an expectation that her life was going to be a certain way. Why is there a gap between our beliefs and the way we live our life? It comes from several things. We stop praying, we get too busy. We get too busy to realize we're out of alignment with God. And as women, we're really good at this because we're so busy taking care of everybody else in our life, and we forget about ourselves. And before you know it, we're living in the gap, and we didn't even realize it, staying stuck there. So here are ways you know you're in the gap. When you don't feel joy, you are not happy with your life. When you're stressing out or worrying about things that have no eternal value. When you are stuck asking the question, why? When you can't forgive yourself and or others. When you are stuck in your anger. When you rehearse the wrong that's been done to you. When the story you tell about your life does not match the way God sees you or reflect that He has done in your life. That's how you know you're in the gap. We're in the gap because we've stopped trusting that God meant His promises, that He loves us no matter what, and He is enough. The goal for me, I was reading in Daniel 3, and I want to read it to you briefly here. Have you ever had moments when you're doing your devotion or reading and you're just like, oh my gosh, that was for me. Oh, I needed to hear that. You see, God gives us promises. My grace is sufficient for you in 2 Corinthians. Fix your eyes on me. He gives us the way to do it. And in Daniel 3, verses 16 through 18, it's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And I'm so glad I got that right, because VeggieTales really messed me up on that, getting their names right. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, saying, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves to you. If you throw us into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from the furnace. He will save us from your power. And here's the key. But even if He doesn't. And I have to admit, I was like, oh, I don't like that part. Can we, white out? Can we just backspace over that little piece? Even if He doesn't rescue us from this furnace, we will still believe in Him, and we will not worship your gods. That's what I want to be like. That's the place I want to live, is in that space. Even if God doesn't answer this prayer, even if what I hope for does not turn out just like I wanted, I still believe in Him and stand on His promises. Many years ago, actually in September, it will be 30 years ago. How could it be? I just turned 30. I wish. 30 years ago, I got to face my own fire. I was 13 at the time, and my family had gone over to some friend's house that went to our church. We had built a bonfire. It was September, and they had this little fire pit outside, and we thought we'd be cool and go build this little fire and stand outside and enjoy the nice weather in Washington State, which wasn't very often. The fire started to die down, and my sister and her boyfriend at the time, he was 20, and my friend whose house we were at, he was 13 as well. We had decided that, in our own logic at the time, to pour more gasoline on the fire. And my friend Eric, he did. He poured more gasoline on the fire. He did it a couple times. Until the third time, when he held it just a little bit too long over the fire, and the fire ate up into the gas can, and it exploded in front of us. I was standing here, and I don't know if you've watched the movies, but that's exactly what it was like in the movies, where all of a sudden everything was slow motion. There was no sound. It sounded like an M80 had just gone off in front of us. And everything, I remember this big ball of fire came out, and one went over to my friend Eric, and he did this back bend, and it went right over his head and vanished. The fire went over this way to my sister and her boyfriend, and he was sitting down with his hands on with his chin on his hands, and the fire hit them right in their faces. I remember dancing around because my ankle was on fire, and I was laughing. I was laughing and twirling around, getting this off, and then I stopped. And there was my friend, 13, rolling around in the dirt, screaming to the top of his lungs, "I'm on fire." I remember standing there looking at him, and immediately just fell to my knees and started hitting him as hard as I could. I remember my dad came running out of the house, and he grabbed his pants and just ripped them right off of him. Now you have to understand, I grew up with two sisters, an older one and a younger one, and I'm sitting there thinking, I have never seen a boy in his underwear before. Trauma does that to you. When you're in this moment and you don't know what to think, the weirdest things hit you. I remember getting up and running over, and there was my sister. She had rolled up next to the pickup truck, right up to the tire, and was just laying face down on fire. We ran over to her and put her out just as fast as we could. And then we stood up and we took a breath and we said, okay. And here comes Tim, her boyfriend. I don't know where he went, but all of a sudden he comes walking out. From his belly button up was one solid flame, and he was still walking. He was walking like he was drunk, and we grabbed some blankets, and as hard as we could, we would pound him, and we're just hitting him as hard as we could, until we all finally fell to the ground. I thank God he fell face down. He looked like charcoal. He had no ears, no fingers, nothing was left. I ran into the house to call 911. What else do you do? The ambulance came, and we got her to the hospital to find out that they were going to be transported 2 hours away to Seattle Harborview Hospital. Overnight, my life changed. Overnight. My mom is in Seattle now, 2 hours away. My dad has to keep working because we didn't have insurance at the time. And my sister, they didn't know if she would live or die. So what do you do at 13 and you're the next oldest child? You become the adult. You step up and you do what has to be done. You become mom to your younger sister, you make meals, you clean the house, you go to school, you do everything you're supposed to do because you're a good girl, right? And I'll tell you what, I'm grateful for that experience not at the time, don't get me wrong, I wasn't. I was angry. I was so angry. I was so bitter. I could not understand how God would let something like this happen to my family. We were the model Christian family. We went to church every Sunday. My parents were on the board. My mom taught Sunday school. We were always there on the work days, right? We always brought something to the potluck. We were this good family. And I realized for me, unknowingly, I was taught that my faith was based on works. I really wanted my faith to be an insurance policy that we didn't have. If I was this good girl, and if I could do everything right, and if I could, shouldn't we have deserved to be protected? Shouldn't that have been prevented to happen to my family? We didn't deserve it. Please hear my heart, ladies. I do not believe for 1 second God did that to us. We made choices. When you pour gasoline on a fire, it explodes. That's why it happened. But through that experience, through that time of my life, God did redeeming things for me. God did redeeming things, and I'll tell you what, it's 30 years, and that fire still affects our family to this day. It changes relationships, it changes things that is hard to even describe. But I'm thankful for it because at a young age, it taught me what faith is all about. It taught me to be real, it taught me what I wanted to believe. I admit, like Daniel, I wish I could have said, even if he doesn't save me. I haven't always been in that space. But it's the space worth living in. Because it's the space that gets us out of the gap. It gets us in the space of freedom. Because it doesn't matter what happens in my life, I know I'm going to be able to handle it. Because God is with me. At 13, I knew I wanted to be in ministry. At 13, I knew I wanted to go and help other people. I don't know how I did, but it was just this strong sense that I knew that this was something that God was going to use in my life. And He has. Forgive me for tearing up as I share the story. It is such, I know it doesn't come from a place of still being wounded by it. It comes from a place of being honored that it could have taught me something so long ago that still has power and impact today. You see, if it's not redeemed, then it wasn't worth going through. If you're not going to learn the lessons that God has taught us. And I'll tell you, for all of you that have gone through traumatic events, when you go through something like that, it feels like a tsunami. The waves just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. So how are you going to get up and move forward? In Jeremiah 29, I love the promise that He gives us, and this is the things that we have to hold on to. I say this because I know what forgive me. I say this because I know what I am planning for you, says the Lord. I have good plans for you, not plans to harm you, to hurt you. I will give you hope and a good future. Then you will call my name. You will come to me and pray, and I will listen to you. Sometimes that's where we lose our hope, isn't it? Because we don't feel like God's really listening. I don't want to waste one tear, one sad moment, one moment of pain, without God being able to use it in my life to mold me to be more like Him. You know what's interesting about fire? If you watch the show Naked and Afraid, which I know, my son and I started watching it this summer, fire is essential to survival. Without fire, you can't survive. Without fire, you can't purify things, whether it be gold or water. And fire is a great way of starting things over. It's one of the things about forest fires, right? That is so wonderful is that it can create a new place for new growth to happen. I'll tell you what, fire isn't fun to experience. You never forget those sounds, those smells. But it can be a wonderful, purifying thing in your life if we allow it. I wonder what your fire is that's happened in your life. See, when we were kids, we were taught to stop, drop, and roll. Remember that from school? To stop, fall to the ground, lay flat, and roll as fast as you can. Somehow I missed that. Because the truth is, if I would have caught on fire, I would have ran. I would have ran. That would have been my first instinct. I had never remembered learning that. And so knowing the rules, knowing the survival technique is absolutely essential for life. Stopping, rolling, is essential to survival. So I want to give you a new definition for stop, drop, and roll. You ready? Stop. Stop blaming. Stop living in fear. Stop running away. Stop being a victim. Stop rehearsing all the ways you've been hurt. Drop. Drop to your knees and pray. Drop what you think is right or just. Drop what is less than what God wants for you. Drop the story you keep telling that you don't deserve. Roll. Wrestle with God. Roll around with God. He can handle it. It's okay to argue with Him. If your goal in arguing with Him is to come out with a new understanding, a new conclusion, a new resolution. But if you want to argue for the sake of arguing, He's going to win. If you want to argue so you can prove your point, go ahead. You're going to be tired. In one of my times of wrestling with God, I have to admit, I like the wrestling part. One, we grew up wrestling a lot, and some of my favorite fun times with my dad and being silly. But I was wrestling with God, and I was so upset by the things going on in my life, and I felt God whisper. Have you ever had that? I wish it would just come in a text message. It'd just say God, and give me a text message. Then I would know, right? Instead of this feeling that comes on you that God is speaking to you. And He said this, what more do you want, Kristi? What more do you want? I have given you my Son. What else do you want? Another one of those moments of, oh, okay. Thank you, Lord, for speaking to me. You see, the challenge is when you stop, drop, and roll, you got to get back up. You can't stay on the ground. And that's not always easy. But getting back up, it's an ability to clarify. It's an ability to understand and stand in the promise and hope of what God's given us. Right now, I want you to take just a couple of minutes. You've got about 5 minutes to do this. In your folders, you have a blank piece of paper with a lined piece of paper. You see, right now, you may be in the middle of a gap right now. Maybe you've been coming out of one. And what's really important about this, what I'm going to ask you to do here, it's important to understand and to organize your thoughts. After our time together, you're going to be getting together in your groups, and please hear me. You do not have to share, okay? You do not have to share. You can share if you feel comfortable and if that's what you want to do. But I want to give you this exercise real quickly to get some clarity for yourself so that you might be able to more clearly communicate if you choose. On this piece of paper, what I want you to do, I want you to write from your heart, what's robbing you of your hope? This is only for your eyes to see. This is not going to be passed in, no grades, just for you. What's robbing you of your hope? What has been robbing you of your hope? What does it cost you? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What's the pain? What's the hurt? Write as fast as you can without thinking about it. Just write. I realize for some of you, you could just keep writing, and for others, it's like journaling. No, I don't like journaling. I'm more bullet pointing myself. Here's why that exercise was important. Because what we're going to do this afternoon is talk about how to restore your hope. But if you don't understand what robbed us of our hope, it's going to be really hard to bridge that gap. And so again, this is just for you. Nobody else. You don't have to share it. But I hope it might have given you a little bit of insight into where you're at. You see, we've all read and we all know God's promises. But do you trust it? Do you believe them beyond a shadow of a doubt? Do you trust that God will guide you to a better story? If not, you're not alone. It's okay. We'll get there. If you are in the gap, stop beating yourself up. It's going to be okay. Look at why you're there, and now, the important question, what are you going to do about it? I look forward to talking to you this afternoon. Please feel free to come up to me and talk to me as we're at our breaks or at lunch, because I love each one of you have a unique and different way that this is affecting your life. I pray for each one of you, Diana had talked to me quite a while ago, that God would speak to each one of you exactly what you needed to hear today. And I trust that is what's going to happen.